Here's the third and final part of Pia Hontiveros'es' report from the Vatican. She is one of the 14 journalists traveling with Pope Francis during both his Sri Lanka and Philippine trips. She speaks with a fellow journalist who knows the Pope well.
I also spoke to a former journalist who spent 20 years of his career covering the Vatican for Time magazine and then for Fox News. In 2012, about 6 months before Benedict retired, Greg Burke was convinced by the Vatican to join them and work on strategic communications. Greg Burke is senior advisor for communications to the Vatican's Secretariat of State. Here's that interview. Greg, can you tell us first how you started to work here at the Vatican and your background as a journalist?
Well, my background as a journalist, I worked for Time magazine and for Fox News here, covering both the Vatican but also other things throughout Europe, especially with Fox, Europe and the world. I was traveling a lot. Time magazine was mostly Italy and the Vatican. In fact, I went to the Philippines with Time magazine right after Time magazine had named John Paul II Man of the Year.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time. And I got a call one day when I was actually visiting Fox in New York, and it was from the Pope's Deputy Chief of Staff, and he said, when are you coming back? I said, early next week. He said, well, come see me. And I said, oh, that must be serious. And it was very serious.
Okay, and he offered you what? What did he want you to do?
He said basically strategic communications. I work a lot with the press office, with Father Lombardi, but I'm a step behind. I don't give a whole lot of interviews. I'm happy to do it for big news like this, the Philippines, but that's not my main job to be on camera. My main job is to be thinking about what our message is and how to get it out.
Okay, strategic communication, so what your message is, how to get it out. Part of that was, what, the social media?
Yeah, social media. I'm particularly involved. I work a lot with news.va, one of the websites, but I'm on the Twitter team. So I was here, fortunately, when Pope Benedict launched Pontifex, which was already a success under Pope Benedict. And then, of course, under Pope Francis, it's really taken off.
Okay, so it wasn't like, you know, I told you about that article, you know, that described you as, well, practically the guy responsible for for the popularity of Pope Francis,
I want to do a disclaimer from that. That was, let's just say, not the best example of journalism, okay? I mean, it was curious and it was interesting. I think they called me the guru behind the Pope. There is no guru behind the Pope. The Pope is basically his best messenger. We try to help him. We try to help get it out, but basically he has the message and it's his popularity.
Okay, you mentioned 1995, the trip John Paul II took to Manila, right?
Right.
So you were there. Tell us about that. What is it like?
I always call it the Thrilla in Manila, okay? Because it is, according to most people's account, the biggest mass that John Paul ever celebrated. And of course, he did many big masses, Mexico among them, other big Catholic countries. But the Philippines was just overwhelming. Manila that day was just overwhelming. And I think it left us all in awe, let's say. And so now with Pope Francis coming, who, I don't know, it's hard to measure popularity and we don't know, but we expect certainly very much of the same.
Yeah. One of my questions to you, when I sent you my questions, I said, so are you going to go to the Philippines? And you told me, you had a very funny answer.
Well, I have a very funny answer, which was when I worked outside the Vatican, I made all the Pope trips. And now that I'm inside the Vatican, I basically stay home and watch the ranch. But that's all right. That's part of the deal.
Yeah. So you're not going to the Philippines. So you're going to miss out on this.
I'm going to miss out on. I'm going to miss out on all the fun. Obviously, I'll be watching from here everything I can.
But what are your expectations? What do you think is going to happen? You know, how are things going to turn out?
Pope trips in general, I think it's important to remember. Pope trips in general generate a lot of good news. There's enthusiasm, even when they're difficult trips. John Paul had difficult trips, let's say to Northern Europe to Western Europe, the Netherlands. You know, it wasn't a particularly friendly country towards the church. And yet, you find out when the trip happens, people of goodwill, a lot of people love the Pope, a lot of other people are just there with goodwill, and they're willing to listen to the Pope. Pope Benedict went to the United Kingdom in very rough times, and yet the trip was a huge success for everybody. If people, once again, people love the Pope, people of goodwill, people willing to listen to the Pope. So trips in general tend to be very good news for the church, for the country, for everybody involved. I think with the Philippines, the lid's going to blow off, because obviously it's such a Catholic country. It's got such a strong Catholic community and such an enthusiastic Catholic community. I traveled all over the world for Fox, and every place I went to Mass, what was the biggest population? Filipinos. Yeah, Filipinos, which was interesting. And so certainly, I mean, that's the big answer. I can get a little more specific.
Yes,
but the big
go
answer
ahead.
is we expect huge amounts of enthusiasm, and that's good. But a Pope trip is not about, it's not like a tour of a movie star or rock star, okay? It is, there will be the big crowds, there will be the enthusiasm, there will be all the young people who come out, and yet the way we see a papal trip is essentially, this is a way for the faithful to become closer to Christ. We noticed that on this street, totally packed when John Paul II died.
Yes.
Millions of people coming. Why? Not rock star status. A lot of people personally felt like he had changed their lives. I talked with people when he died. I talked with people when he was made a saint. And what did I hear? I started going to daily Mass. I came back to the church. I became a priest. All because of World Youth Day, because of some connections. I saw him in Chicago. I saw him in New York. I remember him saying this. And that was very moving, because you saw people, their lives changed because of the message. And certainly that would be the main thing in a Pope trip, that let Catholics take their faith more seriously, help them get closer to Christ. And that will be the Pope's main message. Now, there are a couple of other things. I mean, obviously, there's a huge call for human dignity. Do we take care of our neighbors? The Pope is always talking about the throwaway culture, old people, the very young, people without work. What am I doing for my neighbor? What am I doing for my neighbor? And then obviously, it's not just Catholics. Philippines is obviously a largely Catholic population, but it is an interreligious thing as well. It's also, okay, anybody of goodwill here to listen to the Pope, to get this message of solidarity, of fraternity.
Cardinal Chito Tagle had said that Pope Francis, one of the things Pope Francis told him that the Pope wanted him to tell Filipinos is that let the focus of my trip not be me, but Jesus Christ. Essentially, that's it. Because, I mean, of course, people love him, the way they love JP too, no? So there is that feeling sometimes, a rock star, I really love this Pope, but there is also that, that very important
It's not about worshiping the Pope, right? It's about falling in love with Jesus Christ. We talked about this during the Twitter account too. It's not how many followers the Pope has. Is this a way to help people follow Jesus Christ? And it's hard, I think, for people to distinguish the two things sometimes, because there is a human element. There's affection. People see the Pope often as they see a loving grandfather. The Pope talks a lot about the church being all-encompassing, a mother whose door is always open. And come back here. Some people talk here about the colonnades being a sort of embrace. The church is open to all. And that's very moving. People feel personal affection, and that's important. And that's good.
But that should be the instrument.
Exactly.
Right?
That's not what it's all about. And it may be hard to separate, but it will be good that that's an instrument that leads one. Okay, what is the Pope saying? What is his message for us?
Okay. Thank you very much, Greg.
That wasn't so bad, Pia. Okay.
We are counting down the hours till we board the papal flight. First stop is Colombo on the 13th, Tuesday. Next stop, Manila on the 15th of January. Pia Hontiveros'es, 9TV, the Vatican.